Right, let's move on to lecture 8, which is the penultimate lecture in this Memory Masterclass series, where we're going to be looking at perhaps the most embarrassing mistakes we can make, which is forgetting somebody's name or not being able to link it to a face very soon after we've heard it. Now, there are a number of things you need to do. Forgetting names is, as I said earlier, a problem of putting the memory into place in the first instance. You meet somebody across a crowded room, your mind is filled with a flood of thoughts. Do I fancy them? Do they fancy me? You know, all sorts of things coming into your mind. What you're not focusing on, oh, have I got a blemish on my nose? What an extraordinary haircut. But what you're not doing is actually to pay attention, you see. So, when you're given a name, repeat the name. I mean, don't do it in an absurd way. They feel highly intimidated, don't they? Hello, Charlie. Nice to see you, Charlie. How are you, Charlie? You okay, Charlie? You know, if I don't get a fist in my face after 5 minutes, I'll be very surprised. Okay, but you say the name. When you say, hello, my name's David Lewis, and what's your name? You say, so-and-so. And then, if you haven't heard it, always ask for it again. Ask them to try and spell it. Siri Khan, you may recall when we spoke, I asked you to spell your name. This is really because I didn't know how you spelled your name, but I would do this if the name was even slightly other than Jones or Smith or, you know, something which was other than very routine, where I would look a fool if I said Smith. Oh, that's interesting. How do you spell it? Though I suppose in that case, it could be spelled with a Y-E, couldn't it? Or they would call themselves Smythe, I guess, anyhow. So make a comment about a name. I don't mean a rude comment. Oh, that's an interesting name. Or Mcdonald. Or perhaps you've got Scottish ancestors. But something, anything. You're trying to hook it into your mind. You're doing it for your benefit, not for theirs. If you can use a name in your initial conversation, you should certainly try and do it. And then try and develop an image and link it to the face. This will become more easy to see in a second. And then when you name, say, well, it was very nice to meet you, you know, that kind of thing, and use the name again. And then it will be in your memory. Now, you can also use images. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to remember all these names and all these occupations in a way which some of you may have found hard a couple of hours ago when we started this. So here's Jill Stonier. She's a beautician. Now, when you look at her, Jill's face, you're chatting with her, I would create an image. I would think perhaps about Jack and Jill, and maybe Jack and Jill going up a path, going up a rather a stonier path up the hill. Might otherwise have been the case. Somebody rather rudely said to me, well, she looks like she's stoned, so maybe maybe that's the way I'd know it. Well, whatever. I mean, it's just very personal. And she's a beautician. Well, she's kind of a beautiful lady. She's got lovely eyebrows. And so I would perhaps focus on some of these. Be a little bit like a caricaturist, a cartoonist who creates caricatures of people. And look at their key features and try and elaborate these in your mind's eye. So this is Jill Stonier, and Jill Stonier, as we know, is a beautician. Well, Jill, bye-bye, Jill. Nice to have met you. Stonier, how do you spell that? Right, on to the next one. Frank Paris. Well, now, most of you here are far too young, but there used to be a writer in the 20s and 30s called Frank Harris, who wrote rather salacious books from Paris. Actually, when I saw him, Mr. Paris, I thought, oh, Frank Harris, Paris. Anyhow, he looks like the kind of guy who's probably kind of open and frank. He's got a kind of open and frank face. And he's an actor and a male model, so I guess that's a kind of a useful thing for him to have. He's got a nice fresh face, teeth especially nice. So I would perhaps look at his eyebrows and his teeth as a link to his Frank Paris. And Frank, nice to have seen you. Good luck with your acting career. And now we move on to Betty Mcdonald, who is a school secretary, was a school secretary. Well, Betty Mcdonald, I used to know a professor of pharmacology at Manchester University who was called Mcdonald, so maybe that would provide a link there. Betty is kind of an interesting name. The Speaker of the House of Commons in England used to be called Betty Boothroyd. So I might think, well, she doesn't look particularly like Betty Boothroyd, but I can just imagine her in a school being very nice to all the students as they come in. So that's Betty. Betty Mcdonald is our lovely school secretary, retired school secretary. Adam Markson. Well, Adam, biblically the first man on earth and son of Mark. Maybe that would be one way of looking at that. So Adam Markson, we know he's a high-altitude particle physicist. So I would look at that and say, well, it's interesting, does he look like a high-altitude particle physicist? He doesn't exactly sort of, with his little hat, it doesn't exactly look like an academic to me, but, so that's interesting as well. So that's an interesting face. So I think Adam Markson, the son of Adam, the son of Mark. And then Adele Green, lovely lady, a teacher. A green dell. I think of a green dell, somewhere a nice little wooded place, all nice and green. And then I would look at her face, I would look at the style of her hair, maybe again a nose, quite a delicate nose, and I would form these images into the green dell. And finally we have Phillip Driver, the CEO of an engineering company. Actually, the first thing I thought of there was Philip Screwdriver. But he also looks like a man who kind of was probably quite a bit of a driver himself, drove his business, was a very successful man. He looks kind of successful. So again, I would perhaps look at the length of quite a long face. Yeah? So try to form these features, this character. If I was drawing Philip as a cartoonist, what I'd have a quite long face, quite large ears. And that would give me Phillip Driver's kind of, I'd imagine him perhaps in a workshop working behind a lathe. Right, now let's see how we're going to get on now. With the name. So I think you'll find there very little difficulty you have now. Now this is a lovely lady. What is her name? Absolutely. What does Dell do? Yeah, absolutely. No problem at all with that one. Let's have a look at another one. Absolutely. What does Betty do? Absolutely. See, no problems there at all. Betty Mcdonald, you're absolutely right. Now what about this lady? Yes, Jill Stonia. And what does she do? Yeah, there we are. So no problems there. Now there's Jill Stonia, right? Yes, and what did he do?
Engineering manager.
Yep, absolutely. Phillip Driver. And finally, male model and actor, I think he probably prefers to be described as. And I'm sorry, finally here.
Adam Markson, high altitude nuclear physicist.
Particle physicist, absolutely right. So that wasn't too difficult, was it? So what a few hours ago, a couple of hours ago, seemed like impossible tasks, you now see are actually very, very easy indeed.